So thank you again, Gianluca, and thank you, Anna. And I have to thank Anna also for facilitating and organizing this workshop, which was quite, and I think it's quite complicated to organize a workshop hybrid with people in the room and online. But we will manage today. I also would like to thank the Europa Cinema. We are co-organizing this workshop today with Europa Cinema. And I would like to thank Fatima Jumei. I don't think she is in the room or online, perhaps also on holiday, but thank you. And I hope this can become a tradition, because I think the most important thing for all of us is cooperations with several associations and institutions. Needless to say, of course, that this was a year as never before. Many of us had to close down their premises, their cinematheques, their museums. And I sincerely hope that all of you and your families manage to survive the pandemic as good as possible. But apart from all the distress that all of us have undergone, I think there was a lot of activity in the community. And you will discuss that today together in Bologna and online. But we saw a lot of very inspiring initiatives from new from new streaming, online retrospectives, online tours through museums, live streaming of special events. And we were, as executive committee of the ACA, very happy also with our common initiative, the Season of Classics, in which 22 archives participated with a beautiful catalog of online events. Usually Bologna is also the place where we have our annual General Assembly, but as our statutes say that we have to do this before the end of June, we had our online General Assembly a couple of weeks ago. And although it was online, I still think it was very informative. And also there in the association, we can see that there is a lot of activity, not only in the individual archives and cinematheques, but a lot of common projects. For instance, with the digital task force, who will come up with recommendations later this year. But what is happening is that we see a lot of networks and circles between our communities and between our archives, not only the directors of archives talking to each other, but also the specialists, the communicators, the archivists, the restorers. And I think that is really what our association is about, cooperation and the sharing of knowledge and expertise. Well, as Francisco said, today it's really focused about what happened the past year and what will happen in the near future. Will the public come back as soon as possible or not? Will they rush back? And I think there are already some of us are open again, or partly open, but with restricted amounts of visitors. So it's still complicated, but we are very happy to be there again. The afternoon session is dedicated to film literacy and film education. And I know from many of our colleagues and archives, that's really core business. So I hope that most of you can stay also for the afternoon session. And at the end of the day, my dear colleague from the control room, Mikko Kuti, will do the closing remarks, as I can't stay with you for the day. But the only thing I really want to say is that I wish you a very inspiring day, a very inspiring workshop. I'm jealous of the people in Bologna. We will be back next year. And thank you, Gianluca and Anna. And then I want to give back to Francesco in the room in Bologna. Thank you.
Try to do my best to show you also the applause at the end as a camera operator improvising with laptop. So one of the things we learned during the last year is that nothing is inspiring as the people and person and their experience. So now I would like to invite here Michael Bragant to share his personal way to approach to the present and the future. And he's the CEO of the Narodny Filmowy Archiv. And I leave the word to him.
Thank you, Francesco. I'm happy to unmask myself here as one of the representatives of national film heritage institutions in this hall or online. I'll introduce myself through what we've been doing for the audiences in cinemas and online. Our institution has a typical archival movie theater with 110 seats approximately, 2 programs per day. Now, because of the past lockdown, we have the screenings also during the summertime, which was not typical in the past years. We are proud of our programming because it's not making too many compromises, and we're also proud that we still are able to keep the percentage of 35mm prints at least 50 or 55%. This percentage has been shrinking during past 3 years, but still we hope to keep it over 50% of our programming. We all love cinemas, but I'm afraid that the cinemas will not save us. The cinemas will not really be our core activity in the future. I have only 3 remarks to share with you now, and however, I don't have any golden formula how to do things in the future. I will try to make one very simple suggestion. Our online presence has grown, obviously, during the lockdowns. So, however, we don't have our own VOD platform. We cooperate with several commercial platforms, which works very well, and we just try to keep the difference between the hardcore programming and direct cooperation with our audiences on the one hand side, and the presentation or broader access to our collections through the commercial VOD platforms. So my first topic is that the audiences exist. We don't have to build them. What we have to build is the relationship between our programming and our viewers. So I would like to be very specific in this term, and I would like us to speak very specifically about what the programming means and who the viewers are, rather than the audiences. What we can offer, unlike the regular art house cinemas, is the background of an institution. And I think this is our great advantage, because we can offer something more, something broader than just an attractive program. We can offer research opportunities, we can offer contextualization of anything that we want to share with our viewers. And this is something that I would call an added value. So it's not only a cafe or sandwiches that we can sell in the same premises. It's rather the other forms of the content that we can offer to our viewers. And I think this is also part of our mission as cultural institutions to take care of our cultural and social memories. Second, it was already mentioned here, a season of classic films. This is something that is new to us. I was very happy to follow the screenings and also some panel discussions during this season. And one of my conclusions is that it's very hard to use the word classics properly, because I still don't really know what that should mean. So maybe we can just call it old films, which is much less sexy than classical films. However, they are old. And our collection, however, it's been growing, and we still are adding new items to our collections. The majority will be old, and we want to speak or talk to the young audiences. So there is some sort of a paradox that we probably should work on. However, the first season of classic films was a huge success with all kinds of audiences. When I look at the numbers, not only of the screenings or presentations, but also numbers of viewers, this can be really considered a big success. The second important value of the first season to me was that it was international, and we have to be international. No national film archive is just a national film archive. We are all international, and we want to cooperate. So this season of classic films was a great example to what international means in our business. And the third big value of the past season of classics is that this was an opportunity for a new self-reflection. I believe that it was not only my institution who figured out that we are kind of obliged to find new ways of communication with the viewers, because we want to be with everyone. My third and last remark is about projection. Projection is something that, in my perspective, is a key word in our activities, both in situ and online. We have to think about how we project, how we present, how we project our films. And you know, this is a totally different discussion about digital versus 35 and what does that really mean in our future. But this keyword could be also used as a symbol. How do we project our future? And I would like to see it as a symbiosis, not cannibalism, symbiosis of old and new, of in situ and online. And I think that basically we should find new ways of cooperation between our archival content and the current or new productions. And this is basically my conclusion. The audiences are everywhere. And the connection between the classics and the new productions is, I think, a good vehicle for us as heritage institutions to bring the classical content to the audiences who don't really realize that cinema is older than 20 or 30 years. Sometimes, especially at festivals, the classical films, old films, restored films, digitized films, they work for the new productions. So the presence of national cinemas can be really supported by our content very strongly, and that can work for the new productions. Here it could work vice versa. The new productions could be used as a support for our classical content. And this leads to my suggestion that we take a fresh perspective on the whole issue of presentation of classical content, which has a huge potential as a discovery to the new groups of viewers or generations of audiences, because we have so much to offer. And the strategies should not be too complicated. We should go a simple way. We should just find this symbiosis between the old and the new, between the classical and the fresh, and see our mission within the framework of cinema as a cultural form and entertainment, because as it was discovered many times, classical content and archival cinemas are part of the film industry. We are not only this niche of a cinema with 100 seats. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mikkel. And I think this, in my own experience, this is the key to attract also, in my case, my students, is this. So they understand more the film they're watching now by watching the old. Now I can officially call them old film. And they are surprised to discover a new world that is behind what they wouldn't see without this support. And it's amazing the way they discover the past, like it's something dynamic in the present. And this is, I think, is a key point. So, this is perfect in this moment, Madeleine Probst, which I met at the beautiful Watershed in Bristol, and she's the vice president of Europa Cinema, and she's a producer of film events at this beautiful cinema. This is the Watershed in Bristol that does a very good work with the community and the audience, connecting also the old with the new. Madeleine, it's your turn.
Echo what Sandra said at the beginning. I wish I was there. I absolutely adore Bologna, and the festival is like recharges my batteries every year, and I'm so sad I can't be there. So sad, in fact, that we've created our own tiny little version of El Cinema Ritrovato here in Bristol, which is happening next week. So yeah, it's very hard, I'd say, to draw big conclusions at this stage. I feel like we're very much still in the thick of it. We're very much still in the pandemic here in Bristol, but I will try to share a few things. So when we did manage to start, and I'd say that's been the defining feature of the last couple of years, is this kind of stop and start. But when we did restart, we had very, very positive responses. In fact, a lot of our screenings sold out. And when I say sold out, 25% capacity in our very small cinemas. But it was encouraging, nevertheless, to see that there is an appetite for cinema. And actually, when we did first reopened, we did turn to old films or cinemas of the past. We reopened with, which was a mix of reasons, partly due to the uncertainty around new releases in the UK. There weren't many distributors that were confirming re-releases, but also partly because we knew that there was an appetite for great films, and people had spent a lot of time cooped up at home revisiting old films, box sets, and so on, and they were ready to come out and see some of those films on the big screen. So we went with a mix of classics like North by Northwest, also making sure there were local connections there. So Cary Grant is from Bristol. We also screened films like Moonlight, knowing that we had done a lot of work with the Black community and with partners to bring that kind of work to our screens, as well as films that we'd kind of not been able to give a full run, like Vitalino Varelli and so on. The other thing that happened in the autumn, in October, is the London Film Festival offered a touring program, which, you know, usually us in the region, we're a little bit resistant to taking touring programs that come from London all the time. But this time it was very welcome. It was a set of new previews that came with additional content. And we ended up screening some of those in screens simultaneously just because of the demands. So, you know, there were films like Nomadland with an introduction by the director. And the audience, I think, really welcomed that. It was like a surge of new, exciting content. And really now as things kind of start to settle down, and they just have gone crazy again because COVID numbers have gone crazy. But as the release schedule is starting to come back into play, we're encouraged. People are coming to see new films. We also screened The Machistes with the Torino Museum, which was exciting to have our first but they still did a lot of work before we reopened, consulting with our audience. We did surveys, we created a lot of film to show people what it'd be like to come back. There's still pockets, demographics that just won't come back for a while, or they're telling us that they won't. Particularly ethnically diverse communities, which are an important part of our audience development strategy, are nervous. They're also perhaps a bit wary of institutions at the moment. So we know we've got a long way to go with that. But we didn't completely close down. We were very much open during the lockdown. So we had an ongoing online offering. We partnered up with Mubi on this, which meant we could give our audience something to watch without us having to invest a huge amount of money. We're just an independent standalone site, so we couldn't afford to build a player. And we're going to continue doing that kind of work and providing audiences with kind of hybrid opportunities. We screened Nomadland in the cinema, and we were lucky enough to have the author of the book that Nomadland is based on beamed into the cinema, but we also offered our online audience that event. So we're really trying to think of our audience being, some are in venues, some are not. On a very physical level, I think one of the issues has been, how do we bring people together? And the whole heart of Watershed is the social element of it. We have a big cafe bar in the heart of the venue, and that's been really tough, to put on screenings, but then not be able to do that interaction, and not be, even as an event organizer, not being able to go up to people and talk to them. And so I think one of the innovative things that we did was to just open an outdoor bar, Watershed, which means that there can be that more informal interaction in a space that people perhaps feel a bit more comfortable being in. So we've built an undershed bar, which is underneath our cinemas. And I think I just also wanted to add that as a venue, we're not just a venue, and we're not just a cinema. We support a whole community of artists and people that work in technology. We're a funder for our region, so much of my work was around supporting cinemas and festivals, giving grants and advice throughout the pandemic, as well as supporting filmmakers. We fund regional filmmakers to make short films, so helping them through the whole COVID protocols and trying to keep the whole film really. And we're glad to be able to kind of come out the other end, really. So the other thing that we did was to do a lot of work on ourselves as an institution. To obviously, Black Lives Matter kind of put things into sharp focus, but this is an area that Watershed's been working in for a long time. And we're looking quite seriously at representation within our organization, how we approach a recruitment. So we've developed a whole guide to working in a more for new posts, with a view of really diversifying our team and making sure it's more reflective of the community that we're in. Big piece of work which has involved every single member of staff. We've done training around unconscious bias and all sorts of other discussions about interrogating our institution really, and what we're there for, and are we the right people to deliver that. As I said, the fifth edition of Cinema Rediscovered, which unfortunately was cancelled last year, is coming up next week. And for us, that's our big statement. We've been quite quiet we've just reopened, people have come in. We've gone kind of all out with the festival. We've got posters all over the city. For us, it's very much about celebrating cinema going and bringing people back, both to the cinema, but also taking archives out to the streets of Bristol. So we're celebrating the centenary of the death of William Freeze Green, and he's born in Bristol. So we're putting out bits of archive all around the screens in Bristol, and lots of the venues as well, to try to give them a bit of a boost. So it's not just about Watershed, it's just about cinema going in Bristol and rebooting that. We've also had to scale the festival right back and instead created a package. So we worked with Janice on the story of a 3-day pass, and Park Circus on the 1971, the year that Hollywood went independent, and we're packaging this to go out to lots of cinemas across the UK. So realizing people won't travel to the festivals that much, but we can go to them with some of our content. And then I'll just finish with our industry strand, which is happening on 29th and 30th of July, bringing exhibitors from all over the UK online. International guests are very welcome as well, and we'll be looking at repertoire film as something that cinemas can really think about in their programming. So showing examples of how you can introduce rep into your program, and also looking at things like film TikTok, the rise of film TikTok, and how institutions might want to think about that it's become a very important platform. At that, we're super excited to have the festival coming up. A bit scared as well, given the rising levels of COVID, but we'll see.
Thank you, Madeline. Thank you very much. I think if you stay there at the end, so the Q&A, you can join the Q&A with us. Also, I think it's very important, like this dialogue in between cinema, art house cinema, and Cinematech, because it can bring each other some strength. For example, yesterday evening I was to celebrate the return of cinema in Piazza Maggiore, where there was screen La Piscine, and I was thinking, like, listening to Maddie and to all the other interviews before, how important was the presentation of the film and the atmosphere in Piazza Maggiore yesterday to enjoy at its best the film, and the merit is all of Gianluca Farinelli, the director of Cineteca di Bologna. Please join us.
Salve, parlerò in italiano, quindi sì, il merito non era solo mio, è merito di una squadra, tanto della città, che ci mette a disposizione una sala cinematografica piuttosto carina, perché Piazza Maggiore oggettivamente è un luogo meraviglioso e che si presta perfettamente a diventare, a trasformarsi per un periodo. Anzi, mi viene quasi il dubbio che 7 secoli fa abbiano già immaginato che ci sarebbe stata la Cineteca e quindi l'hanno fatta così e poi merito di tantissime persone, chi concepisce il programma, chi lo realizza, tutti gli aspetti tecnici, gli aspetti di comunicazione, e poi l'altro aspetto, il pubblico, perché il Bologna ha un pubblico straordinario a cui si aggiunge un grande pubblico internazionale che quest'anno, nonostante la pandemia, certo non sono i numeri a cui eravamo abituati fino al 2019, però adesso siamo al 3° giorno di festival e se non moriamo a causa dell'aria condizionata di questa sala, i numeri sono molto interessanti, nel senso che in 2 giorni abbiamo venduto più biglietti di tutti gli 8 giorni dell'anno scorso. Allora, come si fa a riaprire? Beh, si continua a fare quello che abbiamo sempre fatto, nel senso cerchiamo di lavorare bene. Non credo che ci sia nessun'altra, non dobbiamo immaginare nuove tipologie di striptease o altre, credo che dobbiamo continuare a fare bene il nostro lavoro. È chiaro che la pandemia e questa prolungata chiusura delle sale cinematografiche, che è qualcosa di sconvolgente, non era mai successo dal 1895 che non fosse possibile vedere un film assieme. È chiaro che questo ha cambiato la nostra percezione, però io penso che e i dati sembrerebbero confermare questa mia impressione, che il pubblico, in particolare il pubblico del cinema di qualità, ha voglia di ritornare in sala. Vi racconto l'esperienza italiana. In Italia, nonostante non sia stata fatta nessun tipo di campagna per il ritorno al cinema, le sale hanno riaperto alla fine di aprile e hanno riaperto in uno stato, diciamo, di solitudine, proprio perché ci si aspettava una campagna sul ritorno al cinema, di cui si era tanto discusso nei mesi della chiusura. Questa campagna non c'è stata. Le case di distribuzione hanno fatto uscire pochi film e in Italia hanno aperto solo il 14% delle sale. Però le sale che hanno aperto hanno funzionato, e per esempio vi racconto la nostra esperienza. Noi facciamo dei cartelloni di un mese. Ecco, il nostro mese di maggio del 2021 è stato il secondo miglior mese di maggio di sempre, nonostante la limitazione sugli ingressi, per cui possiamo far entrare solo il 50% del pubblico, ma abbiamo fatto sold out per 3 settimane. Quindi la mia impressione è che il pubblico del cinema di qualità, che sia esso cinema di qualità contemporaneo o l'attenzione verso la storia del cinema, sia un pubblico che abbia voglia di ritornare in sala, perché conosce quell'esperienza, sa che gli possiamo offrire qualcosa di assolutamente unico, perché quell'esperienza è collegata a tutto il lavoro che facciamo, alla nostra biblioteca, al fatto che la sala è confortevole, al fatto che le proiezioni sono seguite, che spesso sono presentate, che cerchiamo di collegare anche a altre istituzioni della città, che spesso abbiamo degli ospiti, che cerchiamo di comunicare al meglio con tutti i mezzi, quelli tradizionali, social, però ecco, penso che quel pubblico continuerà ad andare al cinema e che stia aspettando il ritorno della virgolette normalità, che in qualche modo il fatto che il Festival di Cannes sia fatto è un inizio di un ritorno alla normalità, perché c'è una massa di nuovi film. Chi era a Cannes li ha già visti, chi non era a Cannes comunque ne ha potuto leggere, e quindi c'è già un'attesa di questi nuovi film. Fra poco ci sarà Locarno, poi ci sarà Venezia, quindi ci sarà una massa di film, che una parte di questi film attendevano quasi da 2 anni, e questo fa sì che ci sarà un'attenzione verso questi film, verso questi attori, verso questi nuovi registi. Il fatto che a Cannes abbia vinto un film di una regista fino ad oggi sconosciuta a un pubblico internazionale. Penso invece che la vita sarà molto dura per i multiplex. Poi la situazione dei multiplex è molto diversa da paese a paese. In Italia i multiplex vogliono dire dei luoghi in periferia che mostrano soprattutto dei blockbuster americani. non è così in tutta Europa. In Francia, per esempio, i multiplex sono perfettamente integrati all'interno delle città e hanno anche una programmazione estremamente varia, quindi, però per quello che riguarda l'Italia, ecco, quella tipologia di sala, il multiplex che mostra blockbuster americani, penso che la vita futura sarà molto difficile, perché penso che quei film si vedranno in contemporanea sulle piattaforme, e penso che quel pubblico che non ha conosciuto che cosa vuol dire andare a vedere un film in una sala che in qualche modo si ispira ad una tradizione e che quindi ha qualcosa di assolutamente unico e che non è ripetibile attraverso lo streaming, ecco, penso che quel pubblico difficilmente tornerà in sala, o comunque ci tornerà ancora meno. Poi la pandemia ci ha insegnato tante cose, e tra le cose che ci ha insegnato ci ha spinto ad apparire anche sulla piattaforma, e quindi molte cineteche, e noi siamo tra queste, hanno iniziato una programmazione in streaming, e noi abbiamo fatto un doppio tentativo. Uno è stato associarci a una cinquantina di sale italiane per programmare i film di qualità che erano disponibili, film recenti, film nuovi che erano disponibili per lo streaming. E poi abbiamo invece fatto un nostro progetto che abbiamo voluto chiamare Il cinema ritrovato fuori sala, per rimarcare il fatto che per noi la centralità è la sala. Quindi è un nome che per il marketing sicuramente non funziona, perché i nomi del marketing devono essere molto brevi. Ugo, per esempio, è un nome da marketing, e invece questo, Il cinema ritrovato fuori sala, evidentemente è un nome difficile, ma insomma per noi era importante rimarcare che per noi è la sala il centro della nostra attività. E mentre, diciamo, l'attività di film di prima visione in streaming non ha funzionato particolarmente bene, perché in fondo erano film che si potevano comunque vedere su tante altre piattaforme, il cinema ritrovato fuori sala ha funzionato molto bene, e abbiamo un numero importante di abbonati, e cosa molto interessante è che sono abbonati non solo di Bologna ma di tutta Italia, anzi la stragrande maggioranza è italiana, poi c'è una percentuale che è attorno al 20% di bolognesi, e questo ci ha anche consentito di mostrare meglio le nostre collezioni e di fare arrivare sulla piattaforma film che non erano mai stati mostrati, film muti, film sonori, film europei, che non si erano mai visti sulla piattaforma. E questa attività contiamo di continuarla, anche quando speriamo si tornerà alla normalità e ci potremo togliere le mascherine, perché pensiamo che sia un'attività molto interessante, che ci offre una ulteriore possibilità. Naturalmente, come tutte le novità, comporta un maggiore lavoro e quindi una maggiore fatica sul nostro lavoro, sul lavoro di ognuno, e quindi deve essere poi un'attività che riesce a trovare un equilibrio economico. Per accedere alla piattaforma si paga un abbonamento che è mensile, e che a partire dal prossimo autunno sarà bimestrale, cioè un programma ogni 60 giorni, e i film saranno disponibili per 60 giorni. E quella particolarità è che tutti i film sono presentati da critici, per ogni film c'è un importante approfondimento scritto, e quindi, diciamo, tutto il lavoro classico di una cineteca abbiamo cercato di portarlo anche sul web. Grazie.
Thank you very much, Gianluca. Just one story that was in Milan was very big. When we reopened after the lockdown, there was a cinema, it's called Cinema Beltrade, that reopened at the sunrise of the day of the end of the lockdown. So it was a Monday sunrise, which means very early in the morning. And we did the sold out with Caro Diario by Nanni Moretti. And most of the film that did more audience in the Beltrade cinema were restored film, or old film, now we can, In the Mood for Love, 8½, Fellini, and so on. So it's interesting because once that they reopen everything, the audience, it's true that there were very few new distribution film and so on, but the audience decided to go to see old films and restored version film, which is a big, important feedback. And it would be very important to check also the data, because we are still not in the normality, but it's already important to check how many people came back in the Cinematheque, how many new customers, how many old, and so on. I think it's very important. And now I give the word to Mikko Kutti from the Kansalinen Audiovisualinen Instituutti. I studied tonight to pronounce this. The National Audiovisual Institute of Helsinki and the General Secretary of ASE. Please, Mikko.
Thank you. I'll just find my presentation. Here. First to check, can you hear me online and in the room? Okay. I'm here, and my colleague Kirsi Raitaranta is online, and she can join in with her comments if she feels the need, and I'll give her actual space at the end too. So, for those of you who have limited knowledge of geography, this is where Helsinki is. I just try to give you the lay of the land so you can understand in what circumstances or what circumstances I'm talking about. Kino Regina is our main venue for screenings at the Cinematheque. It's very new. It was only opened in 2019. It's located with the new Central Library of Helsinki in the very heart of Helsinki, so location is prime, and the building has attracted attention. It's a 250-seat theatre with all the latest and the oldest projection techniques available, and also a new Dolby Atmos system. So here you can see the actual building. It's down here. And this is the central railway station, so you can see it's very central. So if something goes wrong with the programming, we can't blame the location. This is the inside view. So the normal schedule would be 3 to 4 screenings from Tuesday to Sunday, with not quite 1,000 screenings a year, but 700 to 800. Even 2019 was a bit special because of the new building. We went open the full year. So it would be closer to 900 screenings a year. We also do regional programming in 9 cities, but that's been closed and is still closed. And we do educational screenings separately, and we reach about 40 to 60,000 people every year. And the average spectatorship in 2019, which is quite representative, was 56. But due to the pandemic, we were closed from March till June in 2020, and from 24 November 2020 till 29 June this year. So we've been closed for quite a while. And this means that the series that we restarted or started in 2020 after the spring and summer, they were cut short in November. So because we do series of films that last for a couple of months, so people only saw the beginning and they were left hanging. But we were not alone, of course. Almost all cinemas have been closed since November, but commercial cinemas kind of are biting the bullet and have arranged private screenings for 6 to 10 people, which is something that was allowed, which is it's very bizarre and awkward to have a cinema of 300 seats with 6 people in it. But those have been done. And the situation has been very strange. Local authorities dictate the restrictions. The government can close restaurants, but they can't close the cinemas. So the cinema closures have been due to local authorities. And even now that we're reopened, they are insisting that we have a 2-meter safe distance within the cinema, whereas restaurants are open at full capacity without any restrictions. They have restrictions on the opening times and nothing else. As a result, many organizations, cinemas, musicians, performing artists have sued the local authorities, and we'll see where that goes. Anyway, we have started screenings in late June, and we made some kind of sketches of how we could do that. So if we were to fill 85 seats with a distance of 1.6 meters, we could actually, it would be a reasonable amount of people, but we did have to go to 2-meter distances, which means 51 seats in the cinema, so we had a 50-seat limit. Oops, wrong direction. So how did we do? These are the latest statistics. I just updated them, so it's from 29 June till yesterday. So these are the films that we've shown, or the top 10 and the bottom 10. They've either had 1 or 2 screenings. We do a mixture of films with 1 or 2 screenings. So this is the average numbers of viewers in 2 or the 1 screening we had. So we can see that some hardcore classics have done very well. But then, oops, they are in a funny order. Anyway, Morte a Venezia should be higher up. But we only had a couple of sold-out screenings, and those would be below the normal average spectatorship of 56. And we have a couple of really low performers. There's very little interest in the life of Prince Philip, 8 viewers, or very limited interest in the only feature film that Peter von Boag made, The Count, Gravy. So it's a bit strange. There seems really not to be a kind of pattern to this. Some films from '71 did really well, and many did really badly. So it's not the age of the film, and it's not the kind of the status of the film that as we see it. So it's a bit of a mystery still. But we only have 1 month behind us, so we'll see where that goes. But still, the average spectatorship has been 26, which is less than half of what we used to have. So this is contrary to what Gianluca just said. We haven't had 3 weeks of sold-out screenings, not at all, far from that. A couple of successes, but a lot of misses too. And this is not normal. We don't have a bottom 10 like this, usually. We don't, it's not normal to have eight viewers in a 253-seat cinema. It's not normal for us, and it's not normal for anyone. So there's something greater at play here, I think. It may also be that there's been a heat wave during all this period in Finland. So we've had weather almost like this, so people maybe don't want to go to the cinema. They'll be at their cottage on the lake instead. So how did we approach opening the cinemas? Well, first of all, we continued the series that were cut short. So we had a lot of cancellations in the autumn, so we kind of carried on from that. And we have some audience feedback that supports this decision. People were asking to see the films of the series they had started. And that was a success. And there's a new series that we are doing with, in connection with the Midnight Sun Film Festival in Sodankylä, which is the best of the festival hits. And those have been quite popular. But as a general comment, it seems that we think, and the audience thinks, that classics kind of deserve the big screen, and they draw the larger audiences, and we can see some of that in play with the films that were successful, but not all of them. So it's interesting. And just a light comment that in the age of digital, even prints that to archivists look kind of decent, they get criticisms for the little faults they have, because people are now so used to high quality DCPs and are so used to looking at 4K Netflix shows. So looking at a worn print from the 50s is something that feels strange to the audiences who are not used to seeing old films. I like this old film thing, because I've also always had a problem with classics. Because in my mind, classics is something that refers to ancient Greek architecture, classicism, and not all classics are that. What are Renaissance films then? Or Baroque films? Peter Greenaway maybe is Baroque. Kirsi is online. Maybe do you have anything to add to this programming principles? Because this is your shop. It's not mine. Just to make clear, I'm speaking for Kirsi right now. These are based on her information. But Kirsi, are you there? No? Yeah.
Well, thank you, Mikko. That was very good show. And well, yes, I think Michael Brecht-Kant, I can't pronounce this correctly, but he has really many good points there. I think that we have to also screen new art house films and winners of international competition and cooperate with Finnish film festivals, with whom we have common audiences. But we also have to introduce domestic Finnish films and filmmakers, which is actually really nice work in these days. But I disagree with the term classic, because I'm really a strong fan with classics, and I think that these are at their best in the cinema and on the screen, and they are also most attractive to fill cinema halls. So I believe in power of classics and need for those in the future as well. With this concept, we also launched Kinorekina for new publics which didn't know about Finnish Cinematheque before. However, as Mikko mentioned, new audiences also requires restorations and allows, and we get a lot of feedback from this program, which is for us is basic archive program. But in this new environment, Central Library Ode, I think it's a bit of, this is so new audience which don't have seen any old films in a way. And we're also competing with Blu-rays and streaming possibilities as well. But I think in this time we really had difficulties to start again. It wasn't so easy in this time to start again. We just has launched new Kinorekina in Helsinki, and then we have one good year, and after that started pandemic. So, well, but we don't give up, of course. I think that this situation that everything is closed at the time, in this time, cinemas has been closed so long time. Also, all entire cultural section had been closed, and but then we have restaurants which are opened, and still we have strict distances for 2 meters in cinema halls. I think that these actions and restrictions also created the image of the COVID threat in cinemas, which is problematic for my opinion. I think that Mikko has said much of our studying, so I don't know if I have much to say. I think this average now, which we have, is 27 for 50. When we would have 50 people, spectators in those screenings, it isn't really nice, actually. Well, but we also have few sold-out screenings as well.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kirsi. And I will have something more to say about our non-cinematic efforts during the pandemic and after the pandemic, but that's in the second session with Kirsi too, so I won't be talking about online presence now, but after the break.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, so we'll talk more about the online and in the second session. Now, I don't know if you have, 5 minutes of questions. So if somebody has some question for any one of the speakers. I guess it's all clear. So maybe, shall we start the 5 minutes break, or we start right away? We start right away, okay. So, so just one thing for closing this. It's important to have data, but then it's very difficult to read the data. So it was very interesting to read the audience of this, to this screening. And the problem is to know why the people didn't go to that specific audience. And it's very difficult to understand because, of course, the weather and the situation outside is influential to the result of the screening. And one of the things that I always remember in this case is that the biggest crisis of Italian cinema was not because of the invention of the TV, was for the invention of the car. Because people can decide to go away and have a weekend somewhere else. But the TV didn't create any crisis, the car did. So after all the pandemic, not staying inside and so on, I think it's very relevant to be able to read the numbers also in this perspective. Thank you very much to everyone. And then let's start the new panel, which is specifically about online platform rights and how to connect with the audience in different way. Many of the experience of streaming platform were born very quickly, spontaneously, and then were kept. Some other were developed, some other completely changed, some other expired after the opening. So it's very interesting to see how our the Cinematheque dealing with this online form. And I would like to speak with Thomas Christensen with this. He's the curator of the beautiful Danish Film Institute in Copenhagen, Denmark. Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Yeah. It's coming, or?
It's in the left.
All right. Let me bring it up. It's great to see you. It's my first trip abroad since last year here in August, and I just want to start. I have a few comments. I really don't like the old film term. I tend to call them historical films. I completely agree with Mikko that classics, they're not all classics. Classics is sort of the top-notch stuff and the stuff that everyone agrees are great historical films. So I tend to call them historical. And then I thought it was very interesting to hear about Helsinki, that there were local measures in place for the pandemic. In Denmark, we have national measures, so everyone has been under lockdown, also restaurants and so forth. But we opened up in early May, and we've been running at 50% capacity since May. Comparing to Helsinki, we're a little further south and a little further west, and we have about the same cinema capacity that Mikko talked about here, so 250, 80 seats, or actually we have 300 seats that we now run at half capacity. Normally we have 3 times as many screenings as Helsinki and about 3 times as much attendance. So the numbers are somewhat correct, but we're running at 50% capacity, and I would say we're also running at 50% attendance. And we will see how that plays out as we move out of this. We have some things that we blame for the lower attendance. One thing is, of course, summer. We've had a heat wave. We've had almost this kind of temperatures for a couple of weeks. We also had a bit of football. I don't know if you heard about that here. It should have been us meeting Italy in the finals. It wasn't, but we did very well. And of course, people were very happy to meet up privately, but also in public to watch soccer on big screens. And they were allowed to do so, sort of causing an extra spread stuff going on. And I also think that there is just a general sort of delay in, so apart from the seasonal lower interest, there's also a delay where people have to get used to being social again, and I completely understand and also personally feel that it's more interesting to meet live people rather than live images. But I'm here to talk about VOD and what we're doing, and in Copenhagen, we've been very successful in using sort of a free use business case. So what we have is online films, historical films online, and it's been documentary films. So we have two main platforms for heritage materials, and both have been funded upfront by foundations, and the Ministry of Culture, and so we've done very well with this business case where we write up a project for digitizing and putting films online for free, and then we get significant amounts of money to do this, typically on a 4 or 5 year project basis. So one of these platforms, and you can see the numbers, I can't really see the numbers, is our Denmark on Film platform, which has been tremendously popular with normal audiences, or normal Danes, and probably especially local Danes and older Danes are very interested in this. And the pandemic has been very beneficial for this platform. We have about double numbers of views in there, and you can see the numbers. So June, it's tapering off a little bit this year. So just like Netflix, I mean, we're experiencing the same thing. Huge successes last year. It's like, wow, 75% increase in audience numbers. Now it's tapering off, but we're still at a very high level compared to before the pandemic. And I think it's quite impressive that we've had more than 300,000 views on that platform. That's twice the number of people we get in the cinemas over a normal full year.
Question, is
yeah.
that plays or visitors?
It's about the same. It's about the same. So, but these are, I think these are visits and not plays. But you know, quite significant, and I would say that this has doubled, which shows that, what shall we say, normal audiences have been spending more time in front of the computer, or if they're hooked up to a screen. But typically, this would be, you know, lean forward rather than lean back usage. Our other platform is one that is newer, but also it's a more specialized platform. It's a platform that has been created to provide access to a new digitization project we have, where we're digitizing over 5 years. We're, what, 2.5 years into those 5 years. We're digitizing all surviving Danish fiction silent films. And we're making those available for free online. You're very welcome to go in there. We're sort of, you can't see it here, but if you go to the platform, you'll, there's also an English language skin for it, and we're sort of highlighting films where we also provide English language subtitles or intertitles. Here we have, what shall we say, usage is about the same during the pandemic and pre-pandemic. Of course, this is a platform which is growing content, but what we've found is that the pandemic has not provided a boost for this platform. Probably audiences are definitely smaller and more specialized, and maybe also a bit more loyal. So what we've found here is that usage is not, well, what shall we say, as Mikko was talking about here, the number of people visiting has not seen any significant change. However, people, the users that are there tend to spend more time in there, which suggests that, that people come here in order to watch films and not to just browse around and go somewhere else. So that's something that that I think is worth taking in. That it's sort of a mixed image that we're getting here as well. That the more general audience oriented online platform that we have has seen a major increase, whereas the one that's more, what shall we say, academic and film buff oriented platform has been stable and will probably not also drop to the same extent, because here we have people who go looking for what we have here, whereas the other one can sort of be boosted through social media and sort of, if something hot is going on, right? I mean, it's documentary footage. It's and I would say there weren't any questions before, but I'm here until Sunday, so if you have any specifics that you want to talk about, I think we should use the opportunity to talk and talk about details, because really here it's also about bringing our community together and give us a chance to meet eye to eye, which we haven't done for way too long. Just a bit of, because I don't know if I'm the only one who's talking about rights. There may not be a lot of rights talk here, but I just wanted to flag a few things that we've been working on or talking about in the ACE Executive Committee, and Yugoslav, who's really the guy spearheading the suggestion here that we make a pool among our archives of films that are also available for online programming. So you know, we all pool our DCPs and our prints to the extent that that is needed and possible for physical cinema screenings, and our colleague Yugoslav from Belgrade has proposed to make something called Film Europe Express. I don't know if that's what it's going to be called, but I mean, that's the current working project title, where we'll see if, I mean, I'll pull in about 5 films, and hopefully a number of our archives will do the same, in order to create a pool that can be curated online programming in a sort of an online cinematheque way. I also want to say that as we speak, the Art of Commerce section of the new copyright directive from the EU is being implemented in local legislation, and we'll see what that brings. I think the Orphans directive has been, what shall we say, of mixed success. And I'm very happy that the European Commission is actually actively working to get some tools to get heritage films made available by us, and to give the archives some legal backing in order to get the heritage out there, which is otherwise locked down. Whether this will be sort of a real success and a real sort of tool for us to unlock more film heritage, that remains to be seen, but at least there will be a new legal toolkit in there. And then I would like to say it's great to see you here, and we all really long to go back to the cinemas and see our audiences again in the cinema. So that's it for me right now, and I'll be here for questions later.
At the end, again, we will ask for a question, so you can ask a question to Thomas. Okay, so now it's historic film will be from now on. We can do a panel about classic, old, or historic, so we can decide. Yeah. And I give the word to Ellen Harrington, Director of Deutsche Film Institute and Film Museum in Frankfurt. Helen?
Hi, thanks. And do I have screen sharing on already? Can I just go ahead and...
I think we see you
share?
now. Yeah, it's coming.
Okay, great. So first I want to say how sorry I am not to be there right now. I love being in Bologna, and unfortunately I had a trip to where I'm originally coming from in Los Angeles, so it's 3 a.m. here. But I was happy to get up in the middle of the night and see everybody's faces and hear what everybody has to say. And I'm going to talk about sort of the approach that we have in Frankfurt at DFF, the Deutsches Film Institute and Film Museum. This is our historic villa that's on the banks of what they call the Museumsufer. It's along the Main River, where we have 3 floors of galleries, and our cinema is 131 seats. And under a normal year, we'd have 900 programs, and we'd have about 50,000 in-person visitors. And then we would have a number of film festivals that screen in multiple venues and a lot of touring programs. And so I would say most of our online efforts in the past have been to try to get people to show up to things in person. It was very much a promotional attitude of how do we share what we're doing, of course, on social media for people who aren't in the city, but how do we make sure that people can actually get to our content? So I'm gonna just kind of go through this PowerPoint, and the first thing I'll explain, unfortunately, is that it is, the text is in German, but it's pretty easy to follow along, and I'll do a quick explanation of everything. So basically, we pivoted pretty quickly. We had a good social media team. We had rebuilt our website, and we started to look at what do we have for content that could go online. And we got into the streaming game quite late, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes. But we first started to offer a lot of our other kinds of content. We actually created a podcast, which we didn't have before. We filmed walkthroughs on our exhibitions. We already had a lot of online exhibitions, and we started a lot of different kind of social media contents and also blogs, and started coming up with streaming tips when people were in the need for recommendations, I would say, when the pandemic was really serious and everybody was looking for something to watch at home. But we also had a huge backlog of content. We have always filmed our filmmaker visits. And so we had a lot that we hadn't had time to edit, for example. So we went into the archives and we started to put more and more of our existing footage online. And this was something where you can see we had a 20% increase in the visitors, but we had a 40% increase in sort of their screening time. So people were watching more of what we had to offer and watching it longer. We, as I mentioned, started a podcast. We have English language version as well as a German language version. We've recorded 40 episodes. This is the May numbers. And we had 8,000 streams of those, or downloads of the podcast. And we talk about our collections. I really liked what Michael Brigant was talking about, where, you know, we're sort of obliged to find new ways of connecting to our audience. And what we decided is that we weren't only about offering moving image content in its traditional format, you know, a movie that you could see in the cinema, now you could see it online. We thought, can we really open up our holdings? Why do we have this digitized? How can we give people virtual educational content? Because we have a fantastic film education program that you'll hear about this afternoon. We started with the podcast to go into our archives and look at some of our really unique technical equipment, for example. And we thought that these were all things to start offering. When we had a great exhibition called The Sound of Disney, that under a normal year, I think we could have honestly say we would have gotten about 100,000 visitors for that show. It wasn't possible. And it opened and closed and opened and closed. And it was very unreliable in terms of limited capacities. We had to go to online ticket booking in advance and contact tracing and everything. So we thought, okay, let's try to figure out how to share it more actively. And we started to have a lot more Instagram Live and, you know, we ended up filming full tours as well as doing special events directly online. As I mentioned, we've always had a lot of our exhibition content curated as a dedicated online exhibition, but we had certain events that we had planned, they were in the calendar, and we turned them into a virtual experience. So we had the 75th birthday of Rainer Werner Fassbinder, for example. We have the archive, and we pivoted quite quickly during the lockdown and said, okay, how do we create something unique? So we had filmed testimonials from a lot of the actors and other creatives that worked with him. We did have some film sections. We had archive tours. We had a virtual dance party with a playlist, because the music from Fassbinder's films is quite specifically chosen, and we made a Spotify playlist. So we looked at all of our different social media opportunities, whether it was Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Spotify, YouTube, and we tried to use all of those to connect to the audiences that are more comfortable there. We haven't gotten really good at Twitter yet, but I mean, on TikTok, but we'll see what happens if we get into TikTok. So we also had some digital content projects that were already in place that were going to launch anyway, and we launched them during the pandemic. Rhizome Filmgeschichte is basically a rhizomatic schema where a lot of films that have been digitized through the German federal funding program they're documented on Filmportal.de, which is sort of our platform for all of the film credits, biographies, and other filmographic data for German films and films that play in Germany from other countries. And this is an opportunity we took rights free. We were able to get the first 5 minutes of each of the films that have been digitized through the program. And the portal, which I really encourage you to go on, gives you a chance to watch those first 5 minutes, but you can also search by key functions, and you can play around and you can see two films side by side. You can watch their title sequences or their opening minutes side by side. And then you can look for different kind of thematic words. And then you can see films that are in particular genres or deal with particular themes compared side by side. So this has been a fantastic new way to invite audiences into getting excited about seeing either classic or art house or international or new German cinemas, and then start inspiring them to actually make the effort to watch the whole movie. And we do provide the information about how you can see the whole film once you've gotten that first 5 minutes and your appetite is whetted. We then started also to get into online screening. And the big challenge for us was trying to figure out technology, platforms, fees, how do you charge, you know, who's a good partner to work with. I think most of you had the same problem that we did, which is that with 900 programs a year, of course, some of those are films that screen twice, of course, but we host dozens of festivals, and we had a backlog. We had so many things that audiences depended upon and really wanted to see, and the time window was missed because the cinema was closed. And so we started out with one of our most popular series, which is a wonderful Italian series of recent cinema, and it's called Verso Sud, and we ended up putting that online in March with very, very, very good success. And then we were lucky enough that there was a grant program in our state of Hessen that funded our cinema getting a 1-year free subscription essentially to Cinema Lovers. And Cinema Lovers is a platform that is used by a lot of German cinematheques and film museums. And they provide you a package where there's a library of films that they've pre-licensed, and you can program them if you like. And then you can also put up your own content. So this particular screening series, Through the Eyes of Magnum, the photography agency, we had an exhibition that no one could see in our cinema gallery in the lobby of photography. And we were able to offer the companion film series because it just never was going to get into the cinema. There was just not, even when we reopened now, we're trying to do a balance of what can be offered online, what can be offered in the cinema, just so that all of the things that we had pre-booked and that our audiences would have liked to see are offered somewhere. We also have a children's cinema section, and we have a classics, which is the Film Archive presents. And the Film Archive portal is actually free of charge. Every other film you can buy, you know, a 24 or 48-hour stream for maybe €5. We have monthly and 3-month and 6-month subscription service. They have abos, but a fair number of the archival content materials are actually offered for free. It's been interesting to try to figure out how to program this because, again, the good weather came right when we launched this. A lot of people aren't interested in watching inside if the day is long and the weather's good and the beer garden is open. But we have been trying some experiments. And one thing that was quite successful is if we know we have a filmmaker who can participate either in person or virtually, we now have tried running the film in our cinema, running the film also on the streaming service, and then people get access either in the cinema or online to the filmmaker talk. And this is actually special event kind of stuff has always been a big audience driver, and we're not going to get away from it. We're going to have to keep producing special events. One of our significant film festivals is Go East, which is Eastern European cinema, sort of former Soviet era film countries that every year we program from about 30 different countries in 21 languages. And everything was offered in the past 2 years in 2 ways: online, on demand. So some things were streaming live, some things you could download and watch. And then last year, we had postponed certain parts of the festival so that we could put our symposium in July. We had some in-person outdoor screening events in the fall. And we're trying everything to keep the in-presence opportunity going. But what has turned out to be an added benefit, I would say, of the pandemic is that we've been able to offer content virtually well beyond the borders of the city where the festival traditionally takes place. I mean, it's a regional festival. We screen in 4 different cities, but now we've been able to have audiences, you know, throughout Germany and throughout Europe and beyond actually able to watch. And so we've built new audiences in a way that now we have to figure out how to keep it going. And I believe we're going to have to put our efforts into hybrid presentation on almost everything we do going forward. Here is another festival that we have. Lucas is an international festival for film for young audiences. And it was both in the cinema and online throughout Germany. And that was a first because we've always only just cleared rights specifically for the cinemas where the audiences will be. So we had to negotiate all of this film on demand, you know, rights throughout Germany. This was in fact a geo-blocked festival. It wasn't viewable outside of Germany. But we did also have some television partnerships for the first time where some TV stations were looking for content and we were able to have some of our material on television. Here's just some nice pictures of actual people in the cinema. You can see we had a lot of distancing. We have 1.5 meter requirement between audience members, but we did actually have the chance to have our jury kids in person. So just to conclude, I would say, you know, we are, as I say, really having to look at everything that we do, every digitized collection object, every education program, every exhibition, the multimedia guide that we had for our galleries, and how do we offer it online? How do we reach these younger, more geographically diverse audiences? How do we have a more inclusive cultural perspective so that we are reaching a more you know, dynamic audience that was traditionally coming to our house. And as we reopen, I think that we don't have more staff and we don't have more funding, but we are going to end up having to, with the people that we have, spend a lot of time trying to figure out a way to keep all of these enterprises going and offer almost everything in 2 ways, online and in person. So thank you very, very much. And I will figure out how to close my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Helen. And now again, Mikko, is your turn again for the online.
Online, as it happens, we had just launched a new revamped filmographic database and streaming service in December 2019, and it was hugely popular. During the first months we had 1.5 million plays on the service, which is quite a big number considering that we are a 5 million people nation. And the current numbers of films available on the site are 347 feature-length films and 2,796 short films, which are all available for free globally. So there are no restrictions on who can watch them and where they can be watched. And this is easy because we have the rights for internet delivery for these titles. We had some extra money a couple of years ago, which we used to snap up floating rights from a couple of big actors in Finland, because they have no commercial value in Finland. We are such a small country. It doesn't pay anyone to spend any money on these titles for disseminating them. So that's why it's a governmental activity. This site, Elonet, was recognized by peers, archival peers. It was named the Archival Achievement of the Year 2020, which we took with stride because we are proud of this service. What we did during the pandemic, as kind of augmenting what we usually do is that the Kavi programmers that usually programmed for the Cinematheque took their work online, and they programmed curated series of the films we have on the site and made them into contextualized kind of coherent series as they would have been in the Cinematheque, and they proved very popular. And they also took cue from the Fiat Winter School of Programmers, and they had a kind of a competition for the audience to make their own series based on what we have there, and it was very popular. And the winner was a social media personality in Finland, so it was very popular. And one more thing that we did was that there was a kind of competition for the general public on naming films that belong to different kind of categories. That this was a national thing, and it was part of the service as well. So this is what it looks like, just the opening view. So it borrows the look from the Cinematheque site. It's not the same, but it's close to the same. If I had more time, I would show it to you. I'll just show you the screenshot now. So how did the pandemic affect the viewership? So as I said, we had 1.5 million during the first month, which is just outside of this graph to the left. So the first kind of spikes are the kind of new thing. It's new and popular, and it's publicized in the newspapers, so we got close to 500,000 views of plays. These are plays, which means somebody clicked on the play button on a movie on the site. And so it quickly came down to about 200,000, but as you can see, when the pandemic kind of hit us the first time, there was a slight spike in April. Otherwise, we can't really say if the pandemic affected this or not. It's been very popular all along. And during the summer, it was kind of quieter as usual. People don't spend that much time on the computer when it's nice weather. But as you can see, it steadily grows, and did grow towards the end of the year. And we were back at 250,000 plays a month in early 2021. And I'm told that some of this variation is due to the fact that we had those curated series, because they did result in small spikes when we put out a new one. There were more spectators than usual. But we are very glad for this, because this site has been more than 10 years in the making. It started as a filmographic database. It has the fullest filmographic data on all films, kind of not only Finnish films, but all films ever shown in Finland. But it really came to life with the addition of the streaming of a good number of films. 300 feature films in a country like Finland, that's a large number. I think the number of feature films ever produced in Finland is less than 2,000, so it's a good proportion of all Finnish films that are there. Of course, it's limited in an artificial way, because there are certain production companies, the production of which we don't have the rights to, so it's missing a whole kind of bunch of films, but all the films that we have rights to are there, almost all, because we have almost finished digitizing them. Well, but this is not the only thing that we offer during the pandemic, and one interesting thing is that another service that we have is Elokuva Polku, the Film Path, which is a film education site, mainly for schools. It has got these paths for preschool, lower school and high school, which have kind of, it's film education at different levels. We talk about composition and angles and such things and whatever, using different languages at different levels. And it's been very popular, and it was also kind of awarded a prize when it was new. It's several years ago now. And I'm told it's also used in universities, so it's kind of extends beyond what it was actually meant for, which is a good sign, of course. But what we didn't expect was that while we had less than 5,000 plays in 2020, we had more. We've already had more plays by now. It's 26,000. Or was it that it's 2020 compared to 2019? Anyway, this is the effect of the pandemic, which is huge and totally unexpected, and I'm not really sure why it happened.
School education went online, of course.
Yeah, and everybody was at home, so they had to watch them online. But still, we are very kind of happy about this turn of events anyway. And we also have a new platform, which is a live streaming service, which is connected to the Cinematheque, Kino Regina. And I suppose Kirsi is the person to talk about this because it's her doing. So I'm giving the mic to her again. Thank you. Kirsi? Technical issues.
No, she's
Mute.
Yeah.
You're, Kirsi, sorry, you're mute. Your microphone is off. You have to unmute. Thank you. No?
Yes.
You hear me?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
now we can hear you. Perfect.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you, Mikko, once again. And yeah, about these film path figures, I think this huge increase is a part of that in 2020, these figures tend to be class-specific views, while 2021, it includes also spectators in schools, also the pupils. Yeah, we have started Kino Regina's streaming service with films of Lux Audience Award, and that was our first time in live streamings or streamings, but we are coming back to this, I think, later in the autumn. I think this year's Season of Classics was a great concept, and it is a great concept that showcases that archives own restoration work and national heritage. It's one way to make visible the importance of the work of film archives, and at the same time positions ourselves as part of the world of film archives and introduce a film that is less familiar to the public. And as Mikko said, that we have bought new films or newer children films and youth films for the film path. This is a bit challenging because there is no model for that. Maybe you can also help us, who already have this kind of service, can help us to what kind of rights, film cost, right cost you have, or. But anyways, we have started with this, and I'm really happy about that. In this summer, we are launched, as Mikko said, a new cooperation with Midnight Sun Film Festival. We are collaborating in two fronts in a way. At Kino Regina, we present the best films of the festival's early years, but also festival launched a new online program of Finnish film history, which is based on our restorations. So I think this is really really good cooperation with Midnight Sun Film Festival. I haven't got any other news at the moment.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So that concludes the jury of Finland. Thank you.
And last but not least, Lauren Murphy, the head of content of Cineville.
I'm head of content at cineville.nl. For those of you who don't know, we're a bit of an odd one out here because we're not actually an exhibitor. We do work with pretty much all the independent exhibitors in the Netherlands, but we're a platform with an all-you-can-watch membership that allows people to visit all the cinematecas and art house cinemas. Well, not all of them, but we have about 50 at the moment in the Netherlands. So the situation in 2020, before the lockdown hit, was that we were growing. We had 50,000 members that really enjoyed our services. We also have a magazine. We organize events. And it's especially for the theaters, it's a good marketing tool because it was started to really lower the threshold of art house cinema, of film history for specifically a younger audience. And over the years, it has proved to work. So the audiences in the Netherlands in the art house cinemas became a lot younger. And we were also reaching out to more cities in 2020, and then everything closed down. So we were, as everybody else, forced to come up with new ideas. So within 2 weeks, we built a temporary streaming platform called Vitamine Cineville for your vitamin C during this situation. And it was strictly for our members, but because we had never programmed before ourselves, we really had to get into deliberations and talks with all the distributors and the theaters who are also part of our association, so everybody is actually on board. A large part of the membership fee that people pay every month for Cineville goes directly to the theaters. They are also paid per view, and the distributors get their even share, as it was before. So they all needed to be on board for this idea we had, and our main goal actually for Vitamine Cineville was to keep people on board. So it wasn't like maybe some institutions is to show their archive to everybody, or our main goal was, let's see if we can keep these 50,000 members with us until everything reopens, because they're such a large part of the thriving Dutch film culture. So we decided to make it free, and we did a lot of online events as well. We did a lot of interactive viewing parties. In the beginning, our programming is very specific. We wanted to show a few classics and then some titles that you maybe had missed in the years before. But because not all distributors were on board, because some of them already had their own streaming platforms, or it was, especially for the larger ones, a little bit more complicated rights-wise, because they had many many international partners above them. So we managed to work with mainly the smaller Dutch local distributors. I had a lot of beautiful graphics that showed, we kind of we didn't want to create an online cinema. We really wanted to offer people the experience, like just a way to view the kinds of films that we think are cinephile, so it's sort of a stamp of approval, and bring them to their couches, their beds, wherever they were. And the graphics I had to show was that it did lead to many people either pausing or staying on board and continuing to pay for their Cineville subscription. So our main goal was definitely met in that sense, even in the way that now, like, we actually managed to create like a big pile of money from all these people that kept paying, that's now being paid to the theaters by every visit that people give to the theaters now that they've reopened. And it's also given us a reason to further explore a sort of Vitamin 2.0, because from the beginning it was clear it was contractualized as well that Vitamin would stop operating as soon as the theaters reopened. But we did a lot of evaluations with the users that really indicated that they stayed on board because they had this option, especially if they were, for instance, from places where there wasn't a Cineville theater present or not in the direct vicinity. And we also got a lot of insight into the data because we already have a lot of data from the 50,000 members because they have their membership card. So a large part of Cineville is also this custom data source that the theaters then can also use to program. But part of the evaluation that we noticed was that people had a very, they really preferred to see the newer titles in the cinemas, but they really would like to have like additional programming next to their theater visits to sort of complete the package and to contextualize certain things they'd seen. So we really feel that there's a future there, maybe for a combined subscription that combines offline viewing with a certain contextualized program online. So the main thing that came out of the research we did afterwards or during is that Vitamin Cineville was in no way a substitute, or online viewing is in no way a substitute for theatrical viewing, which is nice to hear if you're working in the cinema space. So that led us to work on a 2.0 Vitamin that we're developing as we speak in conjunction with the theaters because everybody needs to be on board. And I think in that sense, Cineville's unique selling point for online and offline is that it is that combination. So we already have the community, which is very strong, as compared to all there's a lot of tiny, like smaller streaming initiatives, of course, but it's hard to get your community in one place, and ours already is. So it feels like an opportunity to maybe reach them directly. I think that's it for now because I don't have the presentation and I don't know what else I was going to say.
Thank you very much. I think we are working on trying to find at least the video, so maybe we will end with the video. And so we will try to solve this and close with the video. So the video will close the session. Thank you all very much. If there is any question, yes, there are 3 questions.
I thank you very much. It was an interesting session. If it shows something is that there are many partners now fighting to get a share of the online audience, and that they are very diverse players. I mean, sort of operating with 300,000 is very different with operating with 30,000 sort of audiences for specific packages of programs. I think that as Cinematheque, I represent the Greek Film Archive. The pandemic was an opportunity for us, and as a teacher myself, also a university teacher, it is an opportunity to enlarge your appeal to the audience. We used a very sort of well-built platform, Festival Scope, and this really facilitated our appeal to the audience. I must say that there are some, so in this, we had common experiences, be it with Finland, or the Czechs, or Bologna. That is, our brand name went well in offering sort of, I will use the word classic, because indeed in Greece old film has a double meaning, even saying it's not worth it. So classic or beautiful and restored, as we used to call them, they go along well, and also new content, such as we did in our festival, in the edition of our Avant-Garde Film Festival, which really, it was geo-blocked, but it had a great appeal to the Greek audience. For the rest, I suppose that this now has become a part of our strategy. We cannot go back to a state that we don't have an online strategy. And I think, I mean, for instance, we are collaborating also with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs because there are a lot of Greek communities in Northern America, in Australia, in Europe, many students and many new migrants who have come there. And, you know, this will become an integral part of our strategy. And I must say, up to now, it has been successful. So I thank all the participants for giving some useful insight, but I can also say that the climate, for instance, is a factor. For instance, Bologna and Athens, because we have open-air cinemas, we have a huge, some of you have visited our premises, and you know the Cinema Paradiso. Well, this since May has been going on with a huge attendance, which could not happen in Finland. You have a winter cinema. Therefore, the climate also and the culture plays a role, but definitely we should see, and this scheme about the Serbian proposal about making a pool of films that all cinematheques can use. Of course, our big problem is called Park Circus. And there is an interesting thing for you that you are in the, as the executive, whether we could try to force them not to have double standards. That is, to give different price to Bologna and a different price to Athens. So I thank you. It was an interesting initiative. We look forward. I think it will be... will it be online, that, Miko? Will we be able to... Will this forum be online? That we just... Grazie, grazie. So thank you.
Thank you very much. There were a couple of other... yeah, we need to clean the microphone, and then there are a couple of other questions back there. And then we found the video, so at the end we will...
Thanks a lot. I have a general question to all the speakers in terms of the channels, how you reach the audience, because there are a lot of really, really nice best practice you showed us here, but the question is also, how do you get the new and the old audience to see it? So I would be really interested if you could let us know a little bit how you use social media or other channels to attract your content to the audience you want to reach.
So while the microphone arrives, I can just reply for Italy. In Italy, the press gave a big help with this. So the first day of the lockdown, there were news about the Cinematheque in Milan going online, other Cinematheque putting films online. So somehow the help of the press was the biggest factor in making people knowing and entering in this. Because the social media, especially in the Cinematheque in Milan and other Cinematheque in Italy, are, apart from Bologna, which is the most known and the one that works best on social media, is weaker than it still goes through the official press. But I guess in this, with the woman from Greece, I agree. So every country has its own field. So I guess in Finland, for example, social media or online communication is better than in Italy on this.
The audience is not hearing on Zoom.
I'll just give a quick response to that. I would say the different platforms require different strategies. And for our Denmark on Film material, which is very much local stuff hooked to a map and that kind of thing, landing stories with local media is tremendously successful. So getting documentary footage, clips, getting some sort of actuality connection with other media where they can link to freely available content is enormously successful. You know, you can get 20, 30,000 hits from the Faroe Islands or you know, other communities that are super interested in their community. And then I didn't talk about that here, but for schools and so forth, we also have subscription VOD platforms. So, and those are sort of integrated also with educational materials and teaching platforms. So I think that you know, we play a lot of horses, and you know, sometimes we strike gold, but I would say in general it's you know, it's a lot of work to maintain awareness out there, but I do think that my colleagues and also the colleagues internationally are you know, learning on the job, but we're also quite successful in supplying these services to people. But of course, we always want more audiences, and everyone's always saying more young audiences. But I think that it does take different strategies and an awareness of what it is, what kind of content you're trying to get over the counter to which audience.
You want to add something? Or?
Well, I suppose this was kind of for me too, but unfortunately I'm the one who digitizes the films, and other people are the ones who engage. I'm not an engager, so I have a Facebook account, but I don't know what TikTok is. So it's better I don't say it here. Thanks.
Thank you. There was, I think, the last question.
Yeah, hi, thank you very much for the morning. It was very interesting. I had a precise question from Mr. Christensen. You showed on your first online offer a map. That was one of the 3 ways to research, but what was the... did you pointed geographical issues in the footage and documentaries so that people could find what happened once near their home? What was the way you used the map? Because I think it's very important, this local issue. And so I'm quite interested, and you said it was very, it did work.
Yeah, no, it's been a huge driver for digital funding for the Danish Film Institute. It's a platform, and you can actually, if you go to the latest issue of Journal of Film Preservation on the FIAF website, it's freely available. But you can also just go to the website. So if you Google Denmark on Film, it really started as a platform to promote all of the other stuff that we have sitting on the shelves. So we have footage, you know, documentary materials that we've collected for, you know, the 80 years that the institution has been in existence. And it's not works, so nobody knows it's there. It's typically descriptive titles, so it's, you know, laying the foundation stone of this church or whatever. So we have a map access. So the map is actually the main access to the archival materials, which are not classics. They're old films, as Michael would call it. And it's proven to be quite popular because people are really interested in where they live, where they came from, and you know, where their family came from. So do go visit. It's freely available, not geo-blocked or anything. And I think it's been important for me. We don't have an English version, but it's quite intuitive to browse around in there. And now we're sort of running out of content, so we're also using it for documentary works, and that's proving tricky because you know, it's one kind of publication, and now we're putting everything into that streaming machine, and it's tricky to sort of take out clips that take place in a specific place when it's something that was created to be viewed as a complete audiovisual work. So I think there are some ethical issues that we need to address in the future. But do go look, and it's I mean, there's also, it was developed sort of in parallel with the Britain on Film, which is a similar platform. I mean, so do go check it out, write me an email if you have specific questions.
Thank you very much to everyone. If there are no other questions, I think the morning is over, so there is now a break and then the afternoon. And I will leave with the video. I hope it will work.
Just to show that our online presence was very much a part of what we did. So.
Het was een bizarre zomer. En we wilden alles van de wereld ontdekken. We hadden geen tijd te verliezen.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the break. At 3 o'clock, we will start again. So be quick.